Hi, this is Rebecca from ChemKnits, and today is my 4-year spinniversary. 4 years ago, I started spinning on this drop spindle right here, and I've come a long way since then. So today I want to take you on a little spinning adventure, looking at the roving that I most recently dyed. This is roving that I dyed in a braid, and I used it to break Wilton's Violet. And in the video I talked about how excited I was to spin it up, and you guys told me you were excited to see it. So I'm ready to show it to you. This is not a how to spin video as much as it is these are the decisions that I made while I was spinning. If you give identical fiber to 20 different spinners, you will get 20 different yarns. Just like there are unlimited possibilities when you're knitting or crocheting with a yarn, there are pretty unlimited possibilities to how you can go from fiber to a finished yarn. This is Sandry, my Kromsky Fantasia wheel. I think that it's an awesome wheel for a beginner, and I found it to be fairly intuitive. And I named it after a literary character whose magic is expressed through thread, wool, and fiber. So I thought that that was pretty appropriate. Today I want to make a 2-ply yarn, which means that I need to start by dividing this fiber in half. Now you can see that I've kind of divided it in half, folded it over already, and that the color repeats do not quite line up. I'm going to divide it in half by separating the fiber at approximately the midpoint. And I don't cut it, but you can see I just kind of, using smaller sections and just pulling it apart. I could divide in half by separating the fiber in half down along the whole length, which might give more regular repeats, but I don't mind the colors getting mixed up. Sometimes at this stage, I might weigh the fiber, but ultimately my spinning is not regular enough that I will get really close to the same amount of yarn from each half. So I'm just going for approximately equal lengths. So I'm gonna remove one of them right now. And so another decision when it comes to dividing the fiber is how I'm gonna draft and spin this. I could start from one end and draft and spin directly from this fiber as it is. However, I want slightly smaller repeats of color, so I'm going to take, maybe not always this thin, but I'm going to take a thinner section of fiber and draft and spin from this, which will give me smaller sections of color. So one of them might be pencil thin, kind of like this. Another one, you know, maybe I'll do one that's thicker. I'm not going for regular repeats of color here. More, I'm just kind of having some fun. I am spinning Z singles by spinning the wheel clockwise. When I apply the yarn, I will reverse the direction and apply in the S direction, spinning the wheel counterclockwise. The white you see there is from the leader. It's a piece of yarn that you use on the wheel to get the yarn that you're spinning attached. And that's my cue as baby Rowdy is waking up. I haven't been on the wheel much since Rowdy was born. And if he interrupts me a lot more in this vlog, maybe you'll understand why. But I find spinning incredibly relaxing. And yeah, I mean, it's a little hard to talk on video while I spin, but you know, it's nice and just repetitive, and so it doesn't take that much thought. So sometimes I've said before that, you know, sometimes I let the fiber speak to me. And in this yarn, I thought I was going to spin a thicker single, but I'm not good enough to estimate like what gauge it is. Maybe it's a fingering weight single. But, you know, this is kind of what the fiber, quote, wanted to do. So that's how I'm spinning it. It drafts really easily. The dyeing doesn't seem to affect that at all. And the way you can't see as close, maybe I'll do a different view in a second, but the way the colors are mixing together is just really pretty, and I'm very, very excited about this yarn. I still consider myself a novice spinner. Some of these other tutorials that I've watched online of these really experienced spinners, it's just amazing how even they can get the yarn. But I do like the fact, strangely, that my yarns aren't perfect, because it gives it a real, I don't know, handmade quality. It makes the yarns really unique and not like anything I can buy in the store. So, for all it's not perfect, I am really happy with what I get. Let's take a little look at the yarn. We have in each individual strand, there's a lot of depth of the pinks and purples from this fiber that I dyed. There will be some striping, but the stripes themselves will probably be pretty subtle, especially once I apply it. One thing I'm not really sure about is my drafting technique. Some people do this long draft, and I can never seem to get the yarn even. So I do a pretty short draft and let the spin travel up the yarn. I have finished up the first half of the singles. I really like showing off my spun yarn on top of the roving I have yet to spin. I think that it's just a fun way to shoot it. Let's see about bringing this a little closer. And you can see there's just so much depth to this yarn. And by depth, I guess I mean that it's not solid colored. There is a lot of tonal variation within each strand. And I don't know, I find that really fun, and that's one of my favorite kinds of yarns. This afternoon, I successfully spun both halves of the yarn. Yes, thank you, Rowdy, I did it. And after bedtime, hopefully I will be able to ply them together. Plying always goes way faster than the spinning. And eek, I'm excited already with the way that these colors are mixing, the blue and the purple. I think that this is going to be a really fun yarn. I could move to a faster whirl or whirl with a higher ratio and then treadle slower, but I find that I like to treadle pretty quickly. Oops. I'm going to move this down. Yeah, this is a rare moment where both boys are napping. But, oh, and there goes Indy. Never a dull moment in the ChemKnits household. So for the applying, I am spinning the wheel in the counterclockwise direction. And this should be done really, really fast. Oh, I didn't check the WPI or wraps per inch of these singles. Maybe I'll check them towards the end. But I think I've got probably somewhere between a light and heavy worsted weight 2-ply yarn forming here. After plying the yarn, you can see that I started off with pretty similarly length singles. This might be one of the closest I've ever gotten, and I didn't even weigh the yarn. Yay! Normally, with the extra singles, I would wind that into a center pulled ball and then take each end and ply it together. But this time, I think I'm probably just gonna wind those few yards around my hand and in kind of a makeshift center pull ball. And I'm not even gonna bother going and getting my ball winder. I'm winding the yarn onto my PVC pipe Nitty Knotty. You can find out more about this Nitty Knotty that Keith and I made on my YouTube channel. And once I have all the yarn wound on here, I will count the number of wraps. This is a 1 foot Nitty Knotty. This is 1 foot, so I end up with a 4 feet wrap. I count the number of strands and then calculate how many yards based on that conversion. Of our finished yarn, we have 81 wraps, which ends up being 108 yards of yarn. To set the twist, I am going to soak the yarn with warm water. I like to use the handheld shower head. And just soak it and then hang it up to dry. When you soak it, some people will set the twist. Some people will set the twist using, like by hanging the skein with a weight on the bottom, but I usually don't have enough to set the twist on at once. So it works well enough for me to just leave it on the Nitty Knotty until it is dry. Here is the finished yarn. It is 17 wraps over 2 inches, making it a heavy worsted weight 2-ply yarn. I had a blast spinning this yarn with you. I hope that you enjoyed getting a closer look into the step after the dyeing. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and stay tuned for our next fiber-based adventures.